Thank you, Senator Booker, for holding this hearing. Thank you all for testifying. And Mr. Carbone, I couldn't agree more. It's a staggering conflict of interest, self-dealing. I wrote down the 3 words that Blanche used to describe that IRS sham of a settlement. I think he said regular, typical, and I can't remember the third, but they were anything but accurate descriptors of that unique agreement, which, as the judge in Florida pointed out, has relief for people who are not even parties to the litigation, to the degree there was any litigation, with remedies that have nothing to do with the alleged offense, and uses such broad terms as to be really totally in the eye of the beholder. And I think Senator Cornyn was right. It was also quite striking that Blanche attributed to himself the power to speak for people on both sides of that agreement by saying that it was dead. How could he speak for the other side of that agreement? Well, because he was on both sides of the deal. But I want to start by asking Mr. Carr a question. I asked Mr. Blanche about his recusal, his supposed recusal. I asked him if he talked to Mr. Terrell. He acknowledged that he did. I asked him if he was advised by Mr. Terrell. Did Mr. Terrell tell you that ethics laws and policies required that you not be involved in cases involving your prior representation of the president? His answer was yes. So in those 3 matters, the hush money payment case, January 6th case, Mar-a-Lago case, you were to recuse yourself. His answer was, I'm recused, correct? Well, by the way, he said the cases are not ongoing, Senator, yes. But to the extent there's any work around those cases, yes, I'm recused. So then I brought up, and you must have watched the hearing, so you said to CPAC a couple months ago, the other things that are happening, there was not a single man or woman at the Department of Justice who had anything to do with those prosecutions, meaning the prosecution of the president. Now, you had something to do with those prosecutions, right?
I was a spokesman for the office.
For the Office of the Special Counsel.
Correct.
That was leading both of those investigations into Mar-a-Lago, the classified documents and obstruction case, as well as the January 6th case.
Correct.
So by by what he described to CPAC, you were included among those not left standing as a result of those firings. So I asked him, so you're saying that it's not a conflict of interest for you to be involved in the firing of prosecutors who prosecuted your client, your former client. There's no conflict there. Is that your, and his answer was no, there is. They said there is a conflict of interest. I wasn't involved. That would be a conflict of interest. But he fired you, right?
He signed my termination notice, yes.
He signed your termination notice. So he signed the termination of someone who worked on the prosecution of his former client and arguably his current client, Donald Trump.
Correct.
I mean, it seems to me that was a pretty direct lie he told to our committee. Now, maybe he would quarrel with describing you as a prosecutor, but he wasn't quibbling over that when he was speaking to CPAC. He said no one involved in those cases is still remaining at the department. And when I asked him about taking credit for that, he said, no, that was just a statement I made. But wouldn't it also be a conflict of interest if that supposed tax agreement impacted Trump's potential liability for what had been mischaracterized as business payments? The hush money payments, according to the statement of facts in that indictment, were designed to conceal their true nature and in so doing mislead tax authorities. Wouldn't the signing of that settlement also impact his client potentially in that kind of a case?
I defer to the lawyers on the panel. I am not a lawyer. So.
Yeah.
Senator Schiff, I expect that the lack of transparency around Donald Trump's finances would if reversed, reveal a lot of conflicts of interest. And I think you're absolutely right that the firing of U.S. attorneys or spokesmen, individuals who were involved in any way in those cases, was, as you seem to be suggesting, largely motivated by not wanting those individuals to be involved moving forward. I think a Department of Justice headed by Todd Blanche would have conflicts of interest and problems with regard to lawyers' ethics shot through it at every level, which is why my concern is that if recusal were done right in his case, he would be recusing from the vast majority of what the Department of Justice is currently doing.
I completely agree. Mr. Carr, if I could just return to you for a moment. He signed your termination. Are you aware of whether he signed any terminations involving any of the other members of Jack Smith's team?
I don't know. I did reach out to a few of them. Some of them were fired before he became a deputy attorney general. Others were fired after. So I don't know. I will say...
I would be very interested if any of your colleagues share with you. I think we would all be interested to know whether you're not the only one that he fired on the on the Smith team, or in any of the investigations that he is supposedly recused from. Mr. Carbone, I asked Mr. Blanche a question at the end of the hearing. It was kind of interesting because most of the fact-based questions I asked him, he dodged. The one more or less rhetorical question he really seemed determined to answer, which is, what happened to you? What happened to the Todd Blanche of the Southern District of New York, who was a respected prosecutor? You knew him, you worked with him. I understand from others in your old office that he was held in high regard. What do you think happened to him?
Well, Senator, you were in the room when I gave my opening remarks, but as I said, I worked closely with him. I personally liked him, I respected him, and I valued our relationship. He was a very affable prosecutor. He was fair-minded. He had a lot of good qualities. I don't know what happened to him. I do know what I see, and I can only judge his conduct. I have not had any extensive contact with him in the past year, 2 years. It's been very fleeting, and I don't know what happened, but he certainly is not the person that I once worked with.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, and I mentioned this at the hearing. I don't think people change that much. I suspect it's more that we don't really know who they are until they show themselves, until they are forced to make a difficult decision between their ambition and their principles. And we've seen this. He's not alone in this. We've seen this from so many people who work in this building or the administration, who come to Congress or come to the administration as one person and seemingly transmogrify to something completely different. And I suspect that character flaw was there all along. They just never were forced to make the choices that reveal who they really are. The last question, Ms. Stein, and thank you so much for being here. I was struck by the completely anomalous behavior of Mr. Blanche going to interview one of the co-conspirators, the primary co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein, Maxwell. The fact that he seemed to take no one who really knew the facts of the case, which no self-respecting prosecutor would do, that he didn't challenge any of her many misrepresentations, and that magically she ended up in this prison camp afterwards, unsuited for a sex predator like her. How did victims feel watching that spectacle, that charade? What was that like?
very difficult for us, as it would be very difficult for any victim of crime. Ghislaine Maxwell has shown herself to perjure herself in civil litigation, and it really wasn't lost on us that Mr. Blanche spent 9 hours, 2 days interviewing her, but for months and months and months, we couldn't get in front of the Department of Justice. And when we did, we had about an hour with Mr. Blanche, which was nothing in comparison. Maxwell's move to a low-security facility is unprecedented for anyone with a conviction that she holds. I mean, it's just unheard of. We are further concerned because this administration has not ruled out a pardon. This woman was convicted of sex trafficking, and she's been given preferential treatment over and over and over again, and that just begs us to ask, why?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Durbin, for your indulgence in allowing me to go ahead.